And you just heard how the Airbus A320 made sudden swerves before plunging into the sea. So what would have been going on inside the cockpit? Our expert A320 pilot panel is here tonight. Pilot DJ Frost is live in Las Vegas, and former pilot Rick Dake is live in Phoenix. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. A lot of questions really remain unanswered 24 hours in the aftermath of this incident, this catastrophic tragedy that occurred, and 66 souls feared dead. So I want to begin with you, DJ, to tell me, what you think perhaps, based on the evidence, the forensics we have so far, the trajectory of the flight path, the bits of information we have at this point.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. And I want to preface this first by saying that this is a non-U.S. registered airline. This is a foreign airline. It's not a U.S. airline. So I want people to realize that and to keep flying U.S. airlines this summer and keep their travel plans intact. Now, having said that, I'm looking at things, and at first I thought it could have been a terrorism plot, but I don't know now. I'm trying to figure out these radar images, what they came up with. The Air Asia accident and the Air France accident, there was things that happened with the automation within the Airbus that the pilots didn't realize what they were doing at that point and how to fly the airplane. So once they get down from the top level of automation and they start losing their protections, then certain things can happen. If people aren't familiar with that and can't fly a basic airplane, which the Airbus is not a basic airplane, it has so many modern features and protections, then they could get themselves in some trouble. So I'm a little, torn between what it really could be at this point.
So you're going to hedge it, and that's based on the radar images and some of the data that we've been able to receive at this hour tonight. Rick, do you share some of the concerns, the hesitation to call it terrorism based on what you're seeing as a pilot that's flown these type of planes?
Well, there's so many different variables of what could have taken place in this case. Something catastrophic happened at 37,000 feet. That left turn off the airway is what the pilot probably would have done if he had an emergency. If let's say the left engine failed and he made a hard right turn due to the good engine on the right side pushing him over that way, and let's say that engine came apart and took out some of the control surfaces and the tail, that could create a problem for him as far as being able to fly the airplane manually if he had to. And,
but how do you explain then the sharp turn to the right after the turn to the left?
Well, let's say that's when the engine came apart, parts started flying off the engine and it took out the tail. And the empennage is where all the controls on the tail are, and he lost control of the airplane, and the plane made a hard left or a hard right. I'm not saying this is what happened. What I'm saying is there are variables, and until they get the data boxes, the black boxes, the voice recorder, nobody's going to truly know or until they get to the wreckage. And it looks like everybody's coming together in a very great manner, that everybody's, all the countries are coming together to search for this plane, and I'm sure they'll find it, because that's a very busy ocean way and airway. And
flight pattern, okay.
Sure,
so,
Kimberly, I wouldn't rule out a struggle on the flight deck either.
Right.
I mean, EgyptAir obviously has had a very sketchy security past. They just got hijacked recently, so I would not rule out that somebody entered the cockpit and there was a struggle over the controls at that point either, and an intentional ditching in the ocean of that airplane, because I'm trying to figure out why they haven't even found a scrap yet, a napkin, a life vest, a cup, anything at this point, after all these ships and planes were looking out in the Mediterranean all day today.
Yeah, that's a great point, because putting it in, ditching it there, in that particular area in the water like that is going to make it more problematic in terms of recovering forensics and data to be able to determine, in fact, what happened. That's why there's so many mysteries and questions tonight about exactly what went on. Real quick, DJ, about the lack of distress call. Does this tell you anything?
Well, the lack of distress call, I know people have been asking that, and it goes back to several other aircraft incidents, too. We got to, aviate, navigate, and then communicate. So through that level of, of things that people have to do on the flight deck, that's going to be the last thing that's going to be done. And at that point, they might have just run out of time. So we just don't know at this point. We can't really speculate entirely until we do find the black boxes, and specifically the voice recorder. That's going to give so many more clues and really make it apparent of what happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because if there's any chatter, anybody went into the cockpit, they would hopefully then pick that up, and they'll be able to give us the essential clues that are necessary, because as you know, gentlemen, no terrorist group has laid claim to this tonight.
Kimberly?
As we are doing this. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say they had 3 sky marshals on board that airplane. I would really like to see them find out who they were, where they're coming from, why there were 3. Normally there's 2. And if there were 3 sky marshals on board, I doubt there was a breach of that cockpit.
Very interesting point. That's something we're going to look for tonight and see if we can get some answers, because that is something that stands out in terms of the number that they had on there for the security. Gentlemen, what a pleasure. Thank you for your expertise and for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.